Everybody, and welcome to the Wellness Chronicles. Um, Glad you're here. Hope you're having a good Monday. I hope that things went well for you, that you had a memorable or restful memorable and restful weekend. Um, Hoping that things went well for you today as you got back into the groove, whatever that groove is, whether it was work or preparing for school or just still enjoying summer vacation time. I hope that as you're watching this, that you're safe and that you're well and that all things are working together for your good. Aaron Wells here, Wellness Chronicles, North Philly projects offering uh, community conversations, and we explore uh, life in our marginalized communities. Hopefully, one day we won't have to identify ourselves that way, but the reality is that what the reality is. And so, in our uh, marginalized communities, we want to have conversations that explore our lives and how to ignite sustainable social change, how to not stay where we find ourselves, but to build out and in building out to bring others along, right? That we can have a comprehensive community strategy or strategies, right? We connect thoughts, we connect energy, we connect ourselves, and in doing so, we build out into the lives that we choose and that we want. All right, I love you. I'm anxious to just sort of hold that space for me real quick, and I'll be right back. Thanks. Quick break, right? For those who don't know, I'm an avid tea drinker, and I needed to make sure that I had my tea because it's my go-go juice. I love tea. Um, I'm actually a tea connoisseur, right? And so I love it. But welcome back, and let's dig in. Let's talk about this. Tonight's topic continues to stay on who we are as community and find, how do we mine, how do we grab the greatness of our community, right? How do we as a people dig in, build out, expand, and explore the greatness of who we are? How do we sustain community? I truly believe that first we have to identify the issues that are crucial to our building. I love tea. We have to build out those things that create healthy community, those foundational things that move community forward and advance community. If we're honest with ourselves, we are embedded in some very destructive issues in community. Many times there are things that are going on, and the assumption is that these are things that are happening to us, when in reality, or a reality, is that these are things that are just happening. How do we, as a family, as a community, as a group of citizens, find the best of who we are, create the collective, and move into the best of who we are? I believe in our community. I believe in my Philadelphia. I believe in my North Philadelphia. I believe and I'm the eternal optimist, and just believe that the best is truly yet to come, and that we have propensity. We have what we need. We have the wherewithal. We have what we need to build the greatness that we are. But we got to change our rhythm. We've got to change some things that have become weights to hold us down, that have become blocks to stop us from moving forward. And so Wellness Chronicles um, asks some serious questions and creates conversation and dialogue, because we have to explore what life looks like for us. And then how do we ignite? How do we build out? How do we now spark that change for our community, so that we can have the best of our our lives and the best that life has to offer in community. So this is the groove tonight, and I just want to thank everybody that will be coming on, everybody that chime into this offering from North Philly Project. It streams live as we're doing now. And then also you can go to our YouTube channel, North Philly Project's YouTube channel, and be able to watch the episodes of Wellness Chronicles. These are community conversations that explore life in our marginalized communities, and then adding to that, because we don't want to just have conversations that have no results, that have no action behind them, that don't move us forward. And so our conversations are geared and designed to ignite social change, sustainable, key word there, sustainable social change that allows us to be the best of who we are. I, Aaron Wells, believe that we are a great people. I, Aaron Wells, believe that we are a wonderful people and a great creation. But we got to sort of get a rhythm that works for us all as a collective, and to be able to bring who we are as individuals, and let us shine. Let us be able to lead into the change that our community truly, truly, truly deserves. So as you come on, please share on your social media platforms. If you jump on, please chime in to our chat. Let us know that you're here. All right. So we talked and began conversation last week and discussing the why behind the what, right? Talking about our community and the community that I love. I love being who I am, and I love being who we are, and I am because we are. But what's the why behind the what? When we look at our community and we look at the negative aspects of our community, right? The disparities in our community, the despair in some of our community. When we look at the high rates of crime in community, when we look at things like food deserts in our community, when we look at the condition of our schools and education systems in our community, when we look at employment issues and the social ills in community, we oftentimes cannot see or understand the other reality of our community, the gifts and the talents and the stories that are hidden beneath those that are news making versus newsworthy, right? There are some that make news, the mayhem that goes on and can go on in community. We promote those stories versus those stories that are there very present, right? So we miss what makes us thrive, and we emphasize what makes us ill. And so there's a reason for that. And so we want to talk about the why behind the what, right? The what is what's happening, but why? Why do we continually see ourselves behind the eight ball? Why do we continually see the numbers that talk to us about addiction and unemployment and crime? Why are those things so emphasized? And why can we not shine as we really, really do? So I believe that our community just needs surgery, not band-aids. That we really need to dig in, to go in and find the best of us, to be able to promote it. But some things have to change. They have to change in Black community. They have to change in my intimate love of Philadelphia. They have to change for our betterment. They have to change for these generations we have behind us. But we deserve now to have our best lives. So how do we now understand the why behind the what? We know what these demographics tell us. We know what these statistics tell us, but there's a reason. We didn't just get here. It didn't just happen. So how do we now understand and find that why behind the what? And when we do, are we prepared? Are we prepared to perform the surgery, not just put band-aids, not these quick fix, but to truly dig in and to bring out the greatness that we are? And so last week we began talking about um, the fact that we got to get our rhythm back. I love being black. I think I tell y'all all the time, if I um, die and come back a million times, I want to come back black a billion times. I just love who I am. I love who we are, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing ill about that. It is more than okay to love self, and I do, and I love you, regardless of whatever or whoever you are. I love you, but I love us. So there was a rhythm of progression for us. There was a rhythm for nurturing for us. There was a rhythm of building for us. And circumstance has at times stopped us from that rhythm and separated us from that rhythm, that rhythm that created great minds and uh, great attributes and that created great achievements for who we are as a people outside of just some of those that would be considered the norm for black people. If there's an arena, if there's a category, if there's a topic of achievement, black people have been there. We in Philadelphia have been there. But there are times when it just seems like we've lost our rhythm. And it's not just what we see in the news, it's the reality of what we actually experience. We got to get our rhythm back. And I believe that there are 10 crucial issues that have to be addressed in community in order for us to get our rhythm back. Hold on, tea time. Love it. You need to become a tea drinker. Absolutely wonderful. Um, last week we talked about the first crucial issue. Um, I deemed it the first crucial issue, but it just comes from research, comes from study, comes from living, comes from being a black man in America. It comes from a love for my city, Philadelphia. And the first issue that we looked at that needs to be addressed is the issue of poverty. And we talked about that extensively last week, and we'll come back to that because so many things come out of that. So many things that we'll be discussing in these top ten things. Number one was poverty, and as we looked at the not just concerns and issues, but the repercussions of right what that means for our community, we saw that so many things were attached to the issue of poverty. However, attached to that issue, if we could understand the damage that poverty is doing to us, if we could understand root causes of poverty for us, if we could look at not just the root causes and the results of poverty, but to begin creating some answers for ourselves to build out of poverty. Many of the things that we'll address, number 2 through 10, will be addressed by building out of a life of poverty, poverty thinking, poverty acting, and being settled with living impoverished lives. And so tonight we're going to continue. We're going to keep grabbing on. Um, Greg Harris is on. I want to say hello to you, Greg, and thank you for joining in to the conversation. It's good to see you. If you come on, please join the chat. Let me know that you're there and hang out with us. Okay. Um, so we're talking about the why behind the what for our community, that our community needs surgery, not band-aids. And how do we now desire to build out the health of our community? All right. Um, I'm a firm believer we got to get our rhythm back. I'm blessed at my age. I'm 63. Look good, don't I? Go ahead. Feel free to say it. Um, I just remember when. I remember the movements in community, black led, um, economy, um, business owners, homeowners. I remember so distinctly, and it's there. And our generation is not gone. We're older, and we now have to be able to pass on those who have not seen it, those who don't understand that our community had a rhythm. Oh, yes, we did. We had a rhythm of success. We had a rhythm of empowerment. We had a rhythm of cooperation. We had a rhythm of building, and somewhere we became stagnant. We have to get our rhythm back. So we've talked about the 10 crucial issues. Number one is poverty. That must be addressed in community because all other things circle around that. So tonight we're going to continue that groove. Tonight we're going to continue to talk about um, the things that we have to do to get our rhythm back. So there's a word, and for some, it's a dirty word. It might as well be listed with all the words of profanity that we use. It might be listed. For some, it's a word of freedom. It's a word that says, yes, there's an answer to these issues. But no matter how you look at this word, the reality of it is this is a game changer for us, and it's our reality. And that word is gentrification. That word is gentrification. So our first issue that we needed to talk about and tackle, and we'll come back to each one and dig in further as we go forward with Wellness Chronicles. But I wanted to be able to talk about these issues and just share and build some platform as we begin to dig in. And don't forget, we really are a guest panel conversation, but I wanted to use our last couple of weeks to set the tone as we now bring in other voices. Okay. Number one was poverty in our community. What do we do about it? Number two is gentrification. Um, I often hear people mispronounce the word regentrification or uh, just different variations of the word, but we want to talk about what gentrification is. We hear it and have been hearing it, right? Probably a decade or more, where we've heard this term consistently. But the reality of it is the term began back in the 1960s. Yeah, yeah. And the movements of gentrification have been happening since the 1960s. Many of us are just coming into the understanding of what is happening. And I want you to think this, right? What is happening both around us and to us. So we want to dissect gentrification as we're talking about the why behind the what, as we're talking about crucial issues that have to be addressed in our community of Philadelphia, and for me specifically North Philadelphia, but for us as a whole, what's happening and how do we now not just understand it, what do we do with it once we do? So we're talking about gentrification. That's issue number two out of the top 10 crucial issues that must be addressed for a community to get their rhythm back. So what is gentrification? Because we hear the term, excuse me, we talk about it a lot. We hear, excuse me, it's tea time. Yeah. Getting a little raspy. I love my tea. What is gentrification? It's the shift in a neighborhood's population. Now watch this, because we think race immediately and should. So we'll flow with that. We'll talk about that. But it also shows itself, right, as we talk income. So gentrification is, and this is a basic term. You look it up, right? This is the basic term. I don't want to use a bunch of words and throw a bunch of definitions out. I want to just hit this thing hard right where it is so we have understanding and make it as simple as possible, right? Gentrification is the shift in a neighborhood's population, the makeup of the people that live there, right? From predominantly low income to middle or upper class. Let's do that again, right? It's a shift. That means it was looking like this, and now it's like that. It was here, and now it's here. Or it was here, and now it's a shift. It's a movement. Things are changing. And they're changing intentionally because there's effort and energy behind the change. There's a thought in place. There's a plan in place. Gentrification is well thought out. And so gentrification is a shift in a neighborhood's population. Some of us are experiencing that shift visually, right? That we can see more people that didn't look like the people that used to be here. Or I'm seeing less of people, I'm seeing lesser numbers of people in community, in this community around me. I'm seeing less and less of people that look like this, maybe look like you and me, but I'm seeing less of, and I'm seeing more of this, or I'm seeing less of and nothing to replace. There's a movement going on. There's shifting, and it's a shifting of population. Now you must understand, right? We got to understand the population. We're the ones who build. We're the ones that bring income in or take income out. We're the ones that bring families in. So when there's a shift in a neighborhood's population, there's a shift in the neighborhood because the people make up the neighborhood. And so if there's a shift in the population, if there's a shift from the economic view of the population, if there's a shift in the habits of the population, if there's a shift, right, in the senses of or the people groups in the neighborhood's population, then change is going to happen. So the definition of gentrification, because we hear it all the time, is a shift in the neighborhood's population, specifically from an income perspective. Why? Because most demographics or most topics are connected to income. Yeah, yeah. It's connected to income. That's when we talk about the haves and the have-nots. And so when we are beginning to understand how important income is to the makeup of a community, when we talk about gentrification, it's not just white people coming to take over. Gentrification can look a little different than that. So we want to break it down. Inclusive of, yes. Specifically, not really. So let's talk about this. Gentrification is, and this is again, this is the unfluffed definition, right? And not a lot of bells and whistles on this, not top heavy. Just want to give it to you straight. We can add to it as we go, but it's a shift in a population from predominantly low income to middle and upper class. Now, you say, well, wait a minute, all the white people are moving in, or all the Asians are moving in, or in some cases, right, all the blacks are moving in, all the Latinos are moving in, and we're seeing more and more of them. If it's an indication that there's an income-driven issue, then we're talking about gentrification. We cannot separate gentrification from money. You cannot separate gentrification from income. It's not just a bunch of people moving in or coming into that don't look like me, because the people can actually come in and look like me and gentrification still be taking place. Just saying. So we're going to break this down a little bit, but it's important that I stay here for just a moment, right? Because that word has so many different and accurate meanings to so many of us. And for some of us, it's this new dynamic phrase that's a game changer. Aaron's telling you, let's understand what it is so we'll know what to do with it. So what is gentrification? It's the shift in a neighborhood's population from predominantly low income, which could be black, which could be Latino, which could be Asian, which could be, right, could be, to middle or upper class. I'm liking this so far. If you're there, jump on in. Let's have conversations. We're talking about gentrification. It's the not re-gentrification. It's gentrification, and this is our second. This is our number two issue that we're talking about. I hope you hang out with me next week because I got a banger for you for number three. All right, let's keep it flowing. Gentrification involves new arrivals who differ from long-term residents in notable ways. That's what it says. Yeah, a little T on this one. Gentrification involves new arrivals who differ from long-term residents in notable ways. Did you live in a community that was predominantly black, and now you're seeing more white people? Did you live in a neighborhood that was predominantly white? Now you're seeing more black people. Did you live in a neighborhood, or do you live in a neighborhood that was predominantly Latino, and now you're starting to see more of our Asian brothers and sisters? Are you living in a neighborhood where you're living in an older home and newer homes, single family homes are going up near you? Are you living in a neighborhood where there's newness of things like banks, supermarkets, gas stations, things that you may not have seen or noticed before in neighborhood, and that's attached to some new building? Are you seeing new schools go up, but you're seeing zoning shifted where you might not be going to that new school? See, gentrification involves new arrivals who differ from long-term residents in notable ways, and when new people come, new things come with them. Just think about it. When new arrivals come, what they've always built, what they're used to, what people have created for their comfort. When they come into the community, they're bringing it with them. And sometimes those things do not go together. And so, if that's the case, something has to change. Gentrification. Let's talk about it, because it is the number two issue for us to understand. If we're really going to make sustainable changes in the community, we got to understand, first of all, what's happening in the community. We have to understand the redefining of community. We talked about that one last week, right? And if you haven't seen it, please go to the North Philly Project YouTube channel. You'll be able to catch last week's episode of Wellness Chronicles. These changes happen. These changes are happening. Let's define them so we'll know what to do with them. All right. When we look at and we talk about gentrification, which involves new arrivals, which talks about a shift in population, and it's income driven, right? So that shift talks about low, middle, upper income, low, middle, upper income, right? So there's some shifts completely, not just in how much money is being made or how much money is being brought in. It also talks about way of life. Yeah, this is something we need to pay attention to and not be afraid of. And I have found that many of us, as African Americans, as Black people, we're afraid of gentrification, and so we'll be talking about that also. Brother Greg is on, and Greg chimes in that he's agreeing with these conversations. And so, again, if you're there, let yourself be known. Talk to me and Greg. Hang in there, and let's have these conversations. So, notable changes in gentrification are, ready? Income, major income. It creates this vacuum, right? And on the other side of this space, right? Here's the vacuum, right? You have these numbers going up of people who can bring income into community, and then you have on this side the stagnation of income, even sometimes, right? No income coming in. So we can't do things like improve community. We can't do things like build up our community. We can't do that because the income is not there. What gentrification means, income comes in. So either the people with income come into community bringing their income, or they send their income in. Whatever happens, or however income is affected in the process of gentrification, or the movement or the evolution of gentrification, here is a reality, right? In gentrification, those with the income dictate what the community is going to look like. And when the income comes in, we see the housing prices change. We see housing prices with a greater value. Dig this. In the process of gentrification, lots with no houses on them increase in price. And so this is important for us to understand. Now, I want to caution, right? Not fear, but understand. We basically only fear the stuff we don't get. Because I am a believer of, and I want to share this, and this is one man, one vote, but I want to share this. if we understand it, we can get in it and be a part of it. I just believe that about my people. Once we understand it, we can groove with it. We can make it happen. But until we understand it, we'll be considered, even amongst ourselves, as some victims of something that's happening to us versus be a part of something that's happening. We're going to dig into that later. Notable changes of gentrification are, first of all, you'll see a change of income in areas that are being gentrified. Mhm. You will also see the housing prices go up. Comes with it. Nothing to fear. Educational attainment. Educational attainment. Educational attainment. You're looking at now the education level, both of people moving in, and that's not just formal education, that's understanding dollars and cents, that's understanding market, that's understanding ownership. That's you're going to see a change in education levels as you see the change in occupation due to gentrification. Nothing to fear. We'll talk about that. But you'll also see the change in the racial and ethnic composition. Lehigh Avenue in North Philly, right? My neighborhood. Yo. So I was in North Philly, I think it's last month before. And I'm driving up Lehigh Avenue, my spot. And as I'm driving up Lehigh Avenue, right, I look to my left between 28th and 29th, my neighborhood. And where the library is, I looked and there was a coffee house. Now you might say to yourself, that ain't no big deal. You don't know my North Philly, Strawberry Mansion. And there was a coffee house. And at that coffee house, in this predominantly black community, in this predominantly black struggling community, there was a coffee house with all white people in it. I wasn't surprised because I understand gentrification. The composition of community changes with gentrification, both racial and ethnically. And so these are things that we have to understand, not fear, but understand. You don't have to fear things that you understand. So these are the notable changes. So when you hear this term gentrification, that we understand that these are things that we see affected immediately with gentrification: income, housing prices, educational attainment, and the composition of what it looks like, the community looks like. Two views of gentrification. We get to see it one of two ways, right? Number one, gentrification, when we see it, right? We see gentrification as bringing something vibrant to the affected community, to the neighborhood, and much needed revenue to the city. That means we see gentrification as something good. That means there's the view of seeing gentrification something good. But then there's the other piece, right? The second view is, now this is important for us, right? Let me hit it for us. Here we go. So the other view, because it's two, for some of us, we see gentrification as creating something vibrant. The neighborhood is changing, man. We got stores back, right? We've got a movie theater back. Our schools, oh my, they've cleaned up the graffitis. It's looking wonderful. There's a shopping center and these things that give us the visual of and the feeling of vibrancy in community. But that second view of gentrification on the other side, that if I'm long-term resident, I worry that stuff that you're bringing is going to force me out. It's going to force me to leave, right? It says, and that those who stay no longer feel like they believe. There's these two views. There's the view of the group that says these things are changing. It looks great. This is where I want to be. Oh man, we've built this thing up. It's wonderful to be here. But then there are those on the second view of gentrification who feel like they've missed the train, that this has passed them by. And this is not something that's happening or happening for them. It's something that's happening to them. And I can promise you that that is not a good feeling. to watch things blossom and grow around you, but for you to feel less than. So somewhere in between these two views, somewhere in between this view that says that gentrification is vibrant, and that my neighborhood now is growing, and that my neighborhood is getting the revenue, and that the city is beautiful again because life is happening and we're building and it feels good, it feels safe, it feels healthy. That view sometimes contradicts with the other view of the people who feel victimized by gentrification, to feel as though they're being invaded by other groups of people, who feel as though things are being taken from them, or they've lost some things that they probably may have felt that they were holding on to just by the skin of their teeth, by a string, right? Well, others worry that long-term residents, people who've been there and planted in there for a while, are being forced to leave. That's tough. That's tough. That's tough. But it's a reality of where we are. It's a reality of gentrification. So I really want to talk about this tonight as we flow, because we're talking about some things, 10 things that really have to be addressed if we're going to rebuild and enjoy community. We have to deal with the reality of gentrification in our communities, right? So here's some indicators. How do I know that gentrification is happening? Tea time. How do I know that gentrification is happening in community for me? Well, here's some indicators. One is that there's an increase in property prices. There's an increase in property prices. And there's a high number. Now, you got to get this. We start seeing a high number of investor-owned properties. And we start seeing a lot of vacant properties. Let's do this again. We start seeing a lot of investor properties, investment properties, where dollars and cents are coming in, but not necessarily people following to occupy. But people are possessing. They've got the money and they're building big blocks. You've seen some of them. You've seen some of the streets that you go on and you see the same sign on all of those streets, but you don't see occupation. Those are investor owned. They're coming in, taking advantage of the plight that is left in some of our cities, my Philly. They're taking advantage of, and they're buying and building up in ownership, not necessarily coming with the intent to improve, but with the way prices are and priced up, generally what comes in is not what's already there, right? And so that we're looking at a high number of investment-owned properties and a lot of vacant properties. A lot of vacant properties. Why? Because we're buying and investing and not doing anything with them, just sort of holding on until others come in and property value comes up. So I just want you to see these indicators of. So you'll see empty properties with signs on them. You'll see empty properties with partial renovations. You'll be able to see these things and start understanding what's happening. You'll start seeing more people that don't look like the ethnicity that has been implanted there all the years you've lived there. There are some indicators of gentrification. Now, we can label those good, we can label those bad. It depends on what view you're looking out of, your participation in, and how gentrification affects you. Gentrification is real. As a people, we need to talk about it. Another indicator of gentrification. Many housing units have been built to replace the old industrial and working class in our African American, our Black communities. Now, I want you to understand this. You start seeing this new building around old building. You start seeing new individual housing, and you start seeing new apartment houses. You start seeing new housing. And they're replacing, because many of our areas as Black people were industrial areas, factories, right? Jobs. We had places, business centers in communities that no longer exist. We also start seeing working class people being priced out. You flowing with me? And so, because we're starting to see investment properties, we're starting to see people with chunks of change come into predominantly Black communities and buy up bunches of, right, groups of property. And so now I can't afford that next to me. My taxes have gone up. I'm already struggling with that, and I'm holding on tight to the little bit I have. But I'm watching the house across the street, the house down the street, the two houses around the corner now. Many of these that used to belong to people who looked like me, who made the same amount of money as I did, who had the same history in community, not live in those places anymore. And we're starting to see renovations happen that I'm not responsible for. And we're starting to see signs placed outside that are not from individuals, but from different and larger organizations and companies who can buy up bulk in property. So these are some of the indicators of gentrification. We start seeing shifts in community. I want to identify what this looks like, because we sometimes don't call it the right thing. We don't see it the right thing, but also we fear what we don't know and understand. We fear what we don't know and understand. And as a black man in America, I'm from North Philly. I'm sorry, I only fear God. And so with that being said, how can we have a conversation that identifies and educates us about this term, this thing, gentrification, and then find our groove? So these are the community shifts that happen. And the community does shift, family. It does shift. And that's the reality of it. It does shift and has shifted. I remember in North Philly how vibrant North Philly was in the 60s and then the 70s. And then we got into the crack era. And then we got into some of the other things that happened in community, and it just doesn't look the same. But now we're starting to see other people come in and build up, because the community shifts when you talk about gentrification. These are some of the indicators, all right? These are some of the indicators, some of the things that you see. You see real estate prices going up, right? You watch real estate prices going up. It's important for us, and this is a sidebar, but it's connected. If you're a homeowner, always check your tax value. Stay on top of your taxes. Stay on top of your taxes. Understand what shifts are happening in community, and stay on top of your taxes. Stay connected to the people who can affect your home. Yeah. So we start seeing real estate prices go up. We see shifts in the racial composition. And that's major. I told you about the coffee shop on Lehigh Avenue, right? When I drove by, it's black. Boom, it's a coffee shop full of white people on Lehigh Avenue. I wasn't surprised, because I understand what's happening. But you'll start seeing the shift, and not necessarily, flow with me, in residence, but just in presence. Buying up property, buying up stores, being there to oversee the construction and renovations. And so you'll start seeing the shift in what used to look like ours, right? You start seeing more of people that don't look like you. You start seeing more of people that don't necessarily dress like you. You start seeing more of and being around people that don't necessarily call things what you call them, or see things as you see them. And that dynamic can cause some major issues in community, especially when people feel like they're losing something or something's being taken away from them. But these are the shifts in community that are associated with gentrification. Now, I also want to tell you, right, how you see these things as good and bad have everything to do with not what is happening, but how you view what is happening. We'll talk about that too. So we see the rise in real estate prices. You see the shifts in the racial composition of the community. But watch this, you also see increases in educational attainment. Schools change. People with different skill sets come in and change. That changes. And so these are some of the changes that are immediate indicators that gentrification is happening to us. If you're with me, I'm hoping that you flow and understand that this is not to scare anyone. This is not to run off anyone. This is just to educate, for us to understand that these are things that we've got to be able to deal with, to know what's happening, and how to create something that works for us. Last week, we talked about the issue of poverty in community and how we get to overcome, how we get to build out of, how we get to change that dynamic. Gentrification is about understanding what's happening. All right. So we see these shifts in community. So let's spend some time on this. This is a biggie. So I'm going to take some tea. It's tea time. And then we'll chat. I love it. So the question is gentrification something that is happening, or is it something that is happening to us? Is gentrification something that is happening? Is it an event? Is it a movement? Is it an evolution? Or is there an intentional strategy against those who occupy spaces, occupy neighborhoods? And is that a plot of the white man? Is that a plot of rich people to move us out? Let's talk about it. Here's what I want to give you as we begin to put the plane in the hangar. It's a combination of both. And this is not from a bird's eye view. This is ground level. Gentrification is something that is happening. And for some, it is used as a strategy to move people. But what I want to encourage is that there's nothing that comes at us that we can't shape and reshape to make work for us. Let's jump in here for a minute. Greg is hanging in there with me tonight. Greg said it's happening and it's been happening. Absolutely right, Greg. Absolutely, positively right. And so what do we do with it? What do we do with it? Are we afraid? Do we run from it? Do we move forward as if we're being victimized by it? Is it something that we have to play catch up on? What do we do with the inevitable? Because gentrification is happening. Even as we speak, gentrification is happening. As we move, gentrification is happening. And so for us as a people, for us as occupants of community, as us who have built up and who are owners of, I believe, one man, one vote, I believe that the more we understand, the more we dig into and not walk in the fear of, the more that we grab hold of. Listen, there's nothing that we as a people have gotten hold of that we haven't mastered. And so if it's created as this big, overwhelming entity that we should fear, that's a lie. That is a lie. We are the products of some of the greatest civilizations that have ever been placed on the earth. There is no difference with this. It is though we must understand, we have to understand what this is and what this looks like. Greg is hanging out with me. Greg, I appreciate this. Make sure you share this. Greg hits it. He hits the nail on the head, right? Greg says it's a race and a class issue. You with me? And Greg, I salute you for that understanding, right? Now, Greg also says this. You can't run from it, right? Teddy Pendergrass said, you can't hide from yourself because everywhere you go, there you are. Teddy P, North Philly. Look, same thing with gentrification. You can't run from it. It is. It's here. It is here. And so we have this opportunity, and that's the word we don't use enough when we talk about gentrification. Because many times, and I don't want to put a blanket statement out there, but it's an observation, we've been taught to just walk in a victim mentality. But we're conquerors. You know, what happened in Tulsa, they burnt down Black Wall Street in Tulsa, right? They burnt down something great. The point that I'm making is we've got the capacity. As a community, we can do this. So gentrification is not something that we fear. And it's not something that we look at as happening to us, even if that was the intent of those who are building up. Who told us we're not builders? Some of the greatest civilizations and populations that have ever been on the face of the earth were built by people that look like me and you. Yeah, yeah, that's a for real, for real. And there's nothing that has left us that stops us from being able to duplicate those great things. So the question is asked, is gentrification something that is happening to us, or is it something that is just happening? I say it's the combination of both. However, I truly believe in who we are as a people, and I say one man, one vote. Why don't we get on that horse and show them how to really ride it? Now, in order for that to happen, there are some things that have to change. And this is why gentrification was one of the top issues that I wanted us to be able to talk about and discuss, if we are to get our rhythm back. And we have to get our rhythm back. Our children depend on this. Our grandchildren depend on this. And who better than people that look like me and you to be able to help show people what this really looks like to build something great? It's in our DNA. It's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's not. Mm-mm. It's a desire to live the highest quality of life we possibly can. Our communities have gone through hell. The inner city of America, our communities have gone through hell. It's time to stop the bleeding. It's time to build. And it's time for us to be able to, in cohesion, come together and rebuild our community in a healthy, productive way that changes how these things are done. I am a firm believer in who we are as a people. I'm a firm believer in who we are as a city, Philadelphia. I am a firm believer. I am. And anybody that knows me knows that. And I want to be part of the building. Gentrification is a part of us getting our rhythm back. No matter what the intent was, we take it and we change the game. But we got to have strategies. We have to be able, as a collective, to be able to listen to this, build out, and to join what is happening. Greg is hanging out with me, and Greg, I am really appreciating your time. Make sure, Greg, you also, like everybody else that see this later, share this on your Facebook pages. Make sure these conversations get out. Got a banger for you next week too. Just make sure you come back. I want to show you this. Yeah. We have to buy up the block too. I've said this before. Let's say that the entities, like Hathaway Berkshire, I believe it is, the larger entities, come through, and let's say on a block of 40 houses, they buy up 29. Who says that we can't buy up 4? Who says that we can't buy up 5? It's a collective. It's about us investing in us and participating in this thing that is gentrification, this shifting of the neighborhood. And it's about income. It's about color. It's about race. But it's also about ownership. I choose to be an owner. I choose to raise my children to be owners. Why not? Now, in order to be an owner, I've got to think like an owner. So there's some recalculation that has to happen. There's some new indoctrination that has to happen. There's some leaving some thought and gaining some other thought. It's about seeing things through another lens. But who said we can't do it? Who said you can't do it and I can't do it? And who says we can't do it actively together to find a common ground? And yes, there are a lot of things that divide us. There are a lot of things that are different. But everybody wants to live at a level of life that is pleasing, that is satisfying, and that is healthy. So why can't we figure out not one run from, not have people demonizing, use gentrification as a rule. The boogeyman is no, 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 no. Who says we can't participate in something like this, which is where our world is? Why can't we? Our history says we have mastered everything we've put our hands to. Why not this? Why not see this as an opportunity versus something that is happening to us? Just want to throw that out there tonight. Greg is gone. I love you. Good. Peace to you. We're going to do this thing, y'all. We're going to figure it out. All right. So I began talking about this last week. We have to get our rhythm back, family. We have to get our rhythm back, Philly. We have to get our rhythm back, North Philly. And in order to do that, we have to address the crucial issues, but we have to address them with solutions in mind and not be afraid of, but to embrace the challenge. What have we not dealt with that we haven't overcome? What have we not dealt with that we have not gone to war with and won? It's time that we not listen. It's not about taking our communities back. It's about building something great. It's out there for us. Let's participate. Let's stop seeing gentrification as something mean and evil, even if it was intended that way. Right? There's a scripture that talks to us about taking the things that was meant for evil and turning them into good. Let's say even if there's a plot to take away that which we have, let's flip the script. But in order to do that, we're going to have to get some unison. We're going to have to get some rhythm. We're going to have to look out for one another. We're going to have to have conversations. We're going to have to, but think this, time is of the essence, because this really has been going on since 1960. For real. And so what we have to be able to do is understand what that looks like. So we'll talk more about that as we go. There's some responsibility that happens in community. There's some responsibility that our politicians have. There's some things that we have to address. But family, we do not have to be afraid of gentrification. And it does not have to be something that is happening to us. It can be something that is happening, and listen, that we're invited, the universe is inviting us into. Dig this, so that we can show how we really get there. We got to build a collective, and we got to go forward, right? And so tonight, I just wanted to share with you about gentrification. Spend time thinking about it. Spend time looking at it. It is here. So the question always is, what are we going to do with it? I'm Aaron Wells, and I hope we, I don't know, chill tonight, learn something, understood something. We're going to talk about gentrification along with some other things. Please join me next week for Wellness Chronicles. Going to have a panel discussion, right? I need some company on this thing. And so we're going to have a panel discussion, great topic. We're going to dig in, have some real conversation about our community, what that looks like. I love Philadelphia. I love North Philadelphia. That is my hometown. That's where the people I value and love are. That is Philadelphia. I'm all Philly. And I believe in the promise of my people. So I want you to join us next week for Wellness Chronicles. It's about being well. It's about healing. It's about winning. And the Wellness Chronicles, community conversations, exploring life in marginalized communities and how to ignite social change. Let's get together and win, because we're winners. All right. Have a good night. I love you. Share this on all of your platforms. This will be on the North Philly Project page. Go to it, like the North Philly Project page, and then go to our YouTube channel. All right. Until next week, peace and salutations. Do the right thing by yourself. Stay safe, and try loving somebody, starting with yourself.